Chapter 7, Episode 16. After the Intercontinental discussions, all Liken and others who responded to the discussion landed on an uninhabited island. The Holy Emperor, Thalma, Ellen, Pal, Noah, Clara and other users of divine arts greet them on the beach. In order not to intimidate the natives, most of the expedition waits elsewhere. "We need a quiet place to talk. Would you like to eat dried meat and dried fruit?" The Holy Emperor, in an attempt to calm the situation, recommended the emergency food brought from the imperial capital, but Liken shook her head and refused to answer. The Holy Emperor, missing the mark, said this while eating the fruit. "Let's stop the empty talk. Let's talk first." Elizabeth and Liken sat facing each other on the beach. Thalma is sitting right behind the Holy Emperor. There are also wizards behind Liken, but they are some distance away, so I can't hear their conversation. Although we arrived at the place of discussion, the atmosphere is explosive. When the stage was ready, a native approached the troupe. The Holy Emperor introduced him. "You know, it is the magician Magada-kun. I will ask Magada-kun to translate here." A young man named Magada, a magician chosen by the Holy Emperor from among the prisoners, bows silently to Liken and summons the spirit. The Holy Emperor's words are simultaneously translated by Magada's causing spirit and transmitted to Liken. Liken gave Magada a disparaging look, but Magada did not meet Liken's gaze. Liken and the Holy Emperor began to exchange words. "I want to say hello again. I am Elizabeth, the head of a country far from here called Sanfluve Empire. I apologize from the bottom of my heart for the fleet I sent landing and entering your living area without permission." Liken seemed surprised by the Holy Emperor's words of apology. The suspicious gleam in Liken's eyes made it difficult to guess the Holy Emperor's intentions. She responded with directness. "You don't have to apologize for something you don't mean. Everyone who enters Lake Titicaca dies anyway. This is redemption, and you will have to pay for it with death." Liken seemed to think that the expedition, including Elizabeth, would be wiped out. But Elizabeth is undeterred. "I'm not at Lake Titicaca. But I have seen that the majority of you have entered. It is true that almost everyone who entered the lake unprotected got sick, but we have medicines for this disease, so not everyone will die. Thank you for your concern. Not a disease, but a curse?" "No, I am sick. That's what my talented pharmacists say." Liken seemed to doubt her ears. "If it's a disease, is there a technique that works? Even if it is a disease, it should be an unknown disease to you who just started the invasion." "No, this is medicine. It is material, not spiritual. There are various human, animal and endemic diseases in the world, including this continent. Doctors, pharmacists, engineers and researchers. Their multidisciplinary view sees it as a disease." Liken was silent without disagreeing. "They believe that the curse of Lake Titicaca is fatal." Listening from the side, Thalma suspected he probably thought it was a bluff. "Really? Well, let's see the full effect of the medicine later. Now then, what exactly did you come all the way here for?" "It's just curiosity and research." "It's not to plunder resources, is it?" Liken provokes the Holy Emperor. "That's true. Our empire has a vast land area and abundant resources, as well as impeccable reserves of precious metals. Even if we don't bother to expand our territory to this continent by crossing the sea, the nation is still prosperous." Liken stares at the Holy Emperor suspiciously. "With my mouth, I can say anything. Then why did you reach out your poisonous hand to this continent? You must have been looking for resources." Liken asks the Holy Emperor a merciless question. "The reason we sent an expedition to this continent was pure interest in the state of the world. After all, he thought that this continent was uninhabited. If there was a continent there, I wanted to make a map and find out what the other side was like. So I thought I should erase the darkness of the world. For this reason, our ancestors were destroyed. What does spirit mean to us? It was the same with my family." Liken's words are full of heat, and you can tell they are true. It was not easy to calm her anger, and he thought her anger was justified, so Thalma approached Liken with a suggestion. I apologize for my superficial actions. I can offer you a way to restore the spirit of your revered ancestors, not to mention atone for them. Falma hesitantly stepped forward and showed Malene the seeds of the plague tree. This is a tool that summons infinite spirits around you. I don't know if your ancestors will return, but I think it's worth a try. There was a preconceived notion that evil spirits would be summoned on the continent where Falma and the others lived. But since there are no evil spirits in this country, the use of the plague tree will also change. If the desired effect cannot be achieved, Falma can destroy the psychic tree. I had prepared such a plan, but Malene didn't seem to believe Falma. Yes, you are. Who are you? I cannot grasp the identity of all. Not of this world. Is there something you can trust? I am afraid of you. This person is an apothecary who serves me. The Holy Emperor explained Falma's personal circumstances. Is there such a thing? As the Holy Emperor was talking to Falma, he refrained from saying anything unnecessary. Unfortunately, it is true. Then there's no point in arguing with each other, so why don't we ask each other? From there first, the Holy Emperor sprinkles Malene with water. Conquer your countrymen back and eliminate all of you. If your hometown is in a faraway place, there is no way to return it alive. If the curse doesn't work, I'll hang myself to death. Of course, my compatriots are safe, and I have been treating them with respect for some time. Where have you been hiding? It will teach you if you talk about it, and it will also release it. Why do you want our destruction? I tell you, go back to where you came from. Elizabeth asks in a calm tone without getting irritated. Malene still has the rawness to show emotion, but the Holy Emperor is skillful. Because if we bring her back alive, more invaders will come here. Even if you say that I, the Emperor of the continent, won't let you do that? Can you trust me? They are hiding their true nature now because they are in a bad state, but they must be planning to destroy us. Magada, who translated Malene's words, kept her mouth shut. Then gather your courage and tell Malene what you think. Long. Sorry from the side. I have to tell you one thing. I don't know her true intentions, but just now there was an incident that backed up her statement that there was no malicious intent. What does that mean? Malene looked shocked at the painful return of her compatriots. We were killed by you once. You may have gotten a Rutaleka, but you were not used to it and failed. We all died once and rose again. It wasn't you who protected us, it was that boy over there. Magada points his finger at Falma. Backquote, this can't be true. I will lay a hand on you. With tears in her eyes, Malene covered her ears because she couldn't accept it. Yes, I think so. So it must be a misfire. That boy not only foresaw your failure, he gave us the resurrection potion beforehand, but he also protected us with a barrier. If you intended to destroy us, why would you do that? You should have just let us die without doing anything, and just lamented your mistake. Magada told Malene the truth. Malene lowered her head in disbelief and fixed her gaze on Falma. Falma didn't know what to tell her. Her ability almost killed her comrades. She is not mature enough to bear the shock. While she hesitated, Falma spun words to follow Magada's words. Malene. The ability called Rutaleka. I've been using this ability for over 3 years. I've been using it for a long time, so I can erase everything I know, not just water. Malene bit her lip and didn't pinch her mouth. Then I realized something. His power saves people, but he kills them too easily. Besides, I will kill without distinguishing between friend and foe. Falma's divine arts to prevent his divine power from getting out of control. How many nerves had he worn down in normal times? Falma always had one thought. If you make a mistake in the object of material creation, if you get the picture of the molecular structure wrong, what if I make a mistake in the amount of material? What if the target coordinates are wrong? With just one mistake that you make, people die in all kinds of things. Material creation and material destruction must be strictly controlled. That is why I have never used the ability to steal the water of a person's body fluids, either as an enemy or as an ally, to attack them. It is also an ability that grants instant death. Falma told Malene that he was most afraid of the deadliness of the ability to extinguish matter. If you hang us up with Liken in hand, it is certain that an accidental fire will kill them, your companions. This ability requires absolute control. That's why I was willing to prevent human death. That's all. Why did you do that? Because I thought how desperate it would be if you had killed your companions. Malene seemed to sense something in Falma's words. Is that so? I'm grateful that I saved my countrymen. Falma accepted with mixed feelings the words that obediently came out of his mouth. Then what are their hopes? Malene seemed to have difficulty processing her swirling emotions. The Holy Emperor called out to her as her mind paralyzed and her energy dried up. Nothing. Our empire will simply withdraw from this continent. What's good? Are you going home empty-handed? I can't understand it. Malene asks back, startled. I have nothing to gain. It is not a disappointment to go home empty-handed. I have received information that people are building civilizations on this continent. Since I have this information, there has been a great harvest. The Holy Emperor said it without hesitation. Elizabeth seemed calm and did not want to stir anything up. However, if you are looking for a convincing reason to withdraw unconditionally, we would like to establish a friendly relationship with you and trade with you. Turn off. There's no profit here. Malene rejected Elizabeth's offer with a doubtful face. Falma was concerned to think a little more about it, but... Oh, I don't understand what you mean by trade. Falma guessed from Malene's expression and began to explain trade from the ground up. And that's what trade is. Malene seems to have learned the purpose of trade from Falma's explanation. It shouldn't be a bad story for them, but they don't understand the benefits of trade. Malene has a lousy attitude. Do you want something here? If you take your words as they are, even this continent is rich in gems, gold, and abundant food. Then what about medicine? Malene groaned at Falma's question. Falma seems troubled because he understands that trade is profitable. Another push Falma pressed on. What medicine helps against the curse of Lake Titicaca? Information to prevent diseases? After that, I offered them some of the things they desperately needed, and we soon signed a trade agreement. Thanks to direct negotiations with the Holy Emperor, it was a flow of quick decisions. With a sudden development that no one expected, Falma and the others were able to appease Malene and the others and reach an agreement. I can't say that the hostility was completely resolved, but at least the reason for the hostility is gone. Falma did as he said and returned to the continent with Malene and immediately freed the plague tree. The Eka Shinju had lush foliage and was reborn as beautiful as the Shinju. This is different from when I planted it on the continent. Turned into a normal tree. When I planted it on the mainland, it was very hideous and attracted evil spirits one by one. You said that there are no evil spirits in this land protected by ancestral spirits. The harshness disappeared from Malene's expression and she looked relieved. It's true, I know. Maybe you should change the name. I'll leave this. Then Super Tree Pretuckaninit. Falma now accepts these words obediently. While Falma and Malene laid down and looked up at the plague tree, the ancestral spirits that had been thought lost began to gather one by one, using the plague tree as a landmark. One by one, they emerged from the shadows of the trees. At first, the spirits wiped out by Falma seemed to gather around Falma and protest, but they were calmed by Malene and left. Oh, Grandma. Grandma. Is it the spirit of your ancestors? I'm glad. It seems that it was safe. Although it did not return to its original number, Malene seemed to be able to meet the spirits of her grandparents, and the poison suddenly disappeared. In her culture of appreciating her ancestors, Falma could sense that he was originally Japanese. Even in Japan, people call their ancestors during Obin. Gradually, Malene opens up to Falma, who does what he says and reveals his inner thoughts. Little by little, his tone became more open. The name was Falma, right? Yes, that's right. What does your name mean? Our names always have a meaning. I think you have it too. Do you mean that? Pharmaceuticals or something like medicine? Is that alright for you? Not very good. If you have any complaints about the name, please contact Bruno. My name is Malene, which means morning sea. I think the name is good. Falma earnestly expressed his impressions. Falma and Malene continued to introduce themselves through spirits. I became afraid to use Rudaleka. I am sure that every time I relax a little, I run out of control and wipe out all the water. You can kill people so easily. I agree. No matter how much I train and get used to the technique, I can't reverse it. Neither the elimination of matter nor the creation of matter is necessarily a useful skill for the human body. One mistake and you lose everything. Perhaps I am not qualified to use this power. Aren't you afraid that you have two of these things? Scary. But I couldn't take it lightly at first, but I received proper training from the person who would be my teacher first. If I hadn't had special training with Ellen first, I don't know what would have happened to the two abilities of material creation and material elimination. Falma is in awe of Falma's power and is grateful to Ellen for her courage and dedication in taking him through special training even though he was ready to die. Anyway, from that point on, I was careful, sharpened my concentration and used my skills. If you want to avoid mistakes, try to use it as little as possible. Master, I don't have anything like that. Is there such a thing as a loss of confidence? Falma listened as she accepted her thoughts. If I had a teacher, would I have done better? To work out Rudaleka's performance, I think you need knowledge that you don't know yet. Besides, no matter how much I train, when I use a technique, I still have the same fear that I might kill someone. I think so. Are you also afraid of killing people? That's what scares me the most. By the way, what were you going to use Rudaleka's ability for? Falma decides to listen to her wish. When you hear about it, maybe there will be a way to reconcile. There is a legend that if you extinguish the water of Lake Titicaca, you can break its curse. But so much water, I seem to be unable to extinguish it due to lack of magical power. The curse of Lake Titicaca condemns us to live in underground caves. When the curse is lifted, the day will come when we can live on Earth. Well, Falma sorted out her story. Lake Titicaca is a hot spot for schistosomes. Since the area around the lake is also swampy, freshwater mussels, which act as intermediate hosts, colonize a wide area. So they decided to live underground. For generations, they have believed it to be a curse. Living underground is hard. Hygiene is also a problem. Many people get sick. Falma, could you use Rudaleka to quench the water of Lake Titicaca? I think I did. Falma answered humbly, considering his normal physical condition. This much water? Malene was so surprised that she stiffened. There is no problem even if it is to be any upstream water source. For example, to show his divine power, Falma levitated a mass of water that completely covered the air. Its behavior was controlled by Falma's divine power, and the water that covered the sky like a thick cloud simply floated in the air and did not fall to the ground. This amount of water can be extinguished or even more. I can't believe it. Is there no upper limit? It would be a problem if you asked me to extinguish the sea, but I can at least create a lake. With just one word, Malene seems to have realized that the remark was not a lie. I'm going to bring Rudaleka back to you, so why don't you make a deal to dry up Lake Titicaca? It looks like an unequal deal, but is that all right? If I presumed with the greatest malice, Falma might run away after recapturing Yakujan Ridge. Falma was puzzled by the sudden change in Malene's attitude and wondered if it was a suggestion in anticipation of that possibility. I've come to realize that he doesn't do things like that. It's intuitive. How about this? Giving up on owning Rudaleka, Malene peeled the red thunder pattern from her skin and stuck it flat on Falma's upper arm like a sticker. Rudaleka begins to fluoresce red, takes on a whitish hue, and eventually turns blue, developing the Yakushin man. It's that simple. This ability of Malene was something that Falma could never imitate. So the second Yakujan emblem, which corresponds to the elimination of matter, returned to Falma's arm. They look like they were originally a pair of patterns. Thank you very much. Well then, I'll borrow this. Also, call me if you want to use it. I won't need you for a while. Instead of owning Rudaleka and Yakushineman, it was decided that they should be shared across continents. That's better, Falma thinks. When Falma came into this world with 2 medicine god crests, he often had doubts. Each successive generation of guardian deities had a holy crest, but only 2 for me. For this reason, the amount of divine power has also become enormous. But wasn't that something someone should have? For one thing, Malene could have taken what she was supposed to have, so it wouldn't be fair of her to monopolize it. I didn't feel that way. The blue crest of the medicine god that had returned to Falma's arm was densely rooted and deeply ingrained in Falma's veins. I wonder if the sacred crest is optimized depending on the presence or absence of magical power, the presence or absence of divine power. Even thinking about it, I don't quite understand why it happens. Falma, having regained the ability to erase matter, quickly fulfilled his promise before being pushed so that Malene would not regret returning the medicine god emblem to Falma. Holding her right hand over Lake Titicaca, she made the lake disappear and the marshes around it dry up completely. Malene fell to her knees at the spectacular sight. It was as if they had been forced to surrender after being shown the difference in power between them. Words of gratitude came out of her mouth. Thank you very much. To you too. I was able to do it because you gave it back to me. Did you keep your promise? Let's keep it dry for a few years until the intermediate host perishes. For Falma, the long-standing problem that had plagued her family was a piece of cake. Once it was confirmed that there were no intermediate host mussels instead of Lake Titicaca, Falma provided them with a new source of water. Malene and the others seemed relieved to finally be able to build a dwelling on the ground. All the indigenous people under house arrest were released unharmed. Regarding trade, it was decided that the Empire ship would bring trade goods to the Gavan continent and trade. An atmosphere of harmony is cultivated and hatred is melted away. Okay, let's go home. It's done and we're going back to the imperial capital. The Holy Emperor released the barrier of the Guardian Temple and simply ordered them to return to their base. Ellen, Pal and the expedition were naturally exhausted. Even if I return at full speed from now on, will I make it in time for His Holiness' official duties? Falma hastily prepared the balloon's bead and chariot, burned combustible material in a burner, let in air and heated it to expand it. The expedition got into the frightened carriage and looked up at the balloon with their mouths open. Are you sure, Your Highness? Noah pulls a blanket over his head and asks the Holy Emperor, who was in sleep mode. It would have been perfect to expand the territory of the Empire. Noah, an imperial aristocrat, can't help but feel sorry for the new world he thought he could get. If you take advantage of entering this continent and expanding the territory of the Empire, you will definitely strengthen your national power. She threw the picture away. That's fine. I won't do anything to worry the natives. I am also a parent. It's wrong to force children to live in fear. Your decisive decision, Your Highness. Falma looked up at the 20-meter-high balloon, manipulated the crown rope, and casually agreed with the Holy Emperor. On Earth, a history of genocide against indigenous peoples began after the discovery of the New World. I sincerely hope that this expedition to the New World does not follow a similar course. However, as long as the Holy Emperor is alive, it seems fortunately in this world that this will not happen. Well, I think so too, must protect. Apart from the personal opinion of the strongest and most powerful Holy Emperor in the world, villains can appear anywhere. Falma also thinks that there should be no existence that threatens the lives of Malene and others. Falma had taken care of the crown rope and was going to climb up, but Malene, who had disappeared for a while, chased after him with wild vigor. I put my hands on the carriage, ready to get in. What happened? Are you coming to the Empire too? The Holy Emperor seemed very happy to bring Malene home. But Malene didn't seem to think so. It isn't. Falma, can you read this? I heard you could read the Manual of Arms. Malene hands Falma a booklet. When Falma received it from Malene, Malene turned around and landed on the floor. It's pretty thick. What is it? Falma paused for the moment, then lowered his eyes to the booklet. First of all, I'm surprised by its thickness. Although it's a notebook, it's not like a piece of paper, but like a notebook bound in leather, so even more surprising. It is a souvenir of the great sorceress Harry's. It's an old document handed down from ancient times, found in a cave called Liken. But we can't read this letter. If it's the same language as before, I can read it. It's thick, so I wonder if it's okay to have it translated by next year. Falma flipped through the pages and opened the booklet while taking pictures with his smartphone, assuming it would be returned. I skipped the text, but it was outdated and looked like a diary. As expected, it is written in English. This is like a diary. What is a diary? It's like a diary. Oh, indeed. I was wondering if anything was written about ancient magic. It was placed near Harry's body as a memento of the owner of this book. Can't you summon ancestral spirits? Call me and ask for details. Falma wondered why he asked her to decipher the diary instead of asking Harry's spirit, which she wondered about. Your spirit has never been summoned by my spells. Maybe it is no longer on this earth. Liken can summon anyone who has died in the past and whose spirit does not move. She was at a loss for a long time without being able to summon the spirit named Horace. Falma was now the only person who could decipher the book, which was treated as a sacred scripture for her. Then you will be curious about the contents. Falma understands Liken's feelings, so he accepted the translation. Good. But it will take a while because the crowd is huge. I'm not in a hurry. Bring it with you the next time you trade. Good. I have accepted your request. I will definitely bring it. The damp leather of the book cover gives it a used texture, showing the weight of the years. On the ground, Liken and the others waved their hands. The expedition team also waved their hands and said goodbye with a refreshed expression on their faces. There were many things, but I think it was a good ending that was mutually beneficial. Thanks to the bait arrangement of His Holiness. Falma thought that from the bottom of her heart, not out of flattery. After all, she must be the leader of the Empire. I noticed that too. After safely lifting off the balloon and entering a stable flight, Falma began to read the brochure.